Here we go, Rare Community. Welcome to day 19 of the Rosary and Real Estate 21-day challenge. If you don't know by now, I am your guide, Frankie D'Astoli, which I'm sure you do, but I'm very excited to have you here as I always am. But today, we are covering one of my personal favorite saints, and I am so excited to get into him. He is an absolute OG when it comes to the rosary. He lived by it, he died by it, and he's definitely one that I pull a lot of influence from. And I literally pray to all the time for intercession, and he always comes through for me. So it's so great. But before we get into that, I'm just going to run through two quick notes for everybody. October 7th is the Feast of the Holy Rosary, right? Everything that we're building towards for the Rare 21-day challenge, you guys have come so far, and sincerely, I am extremely proud of you. We are at the home stretch at this point. We have 3 days left. And on October 7th, as we finish this Rare 21-day challenge, we are also going to be holding a group rosary in honor of Our Lady on her feast day of the Holy Rosary. And that is going to be on the Rosary and Real Estate school community page. If you are already a member of the school, all you need to do is go into the calendar tab and you will see that the rosary, the group rosary, is going to be prayed at 6:30 p.m. Eastern time on October 7th, and it is a Zoom link that can be found in the Rosary and Real Estate Community School. If you are not already a member of the community school, I don't know what you're waiting for, all right? You've been listening to this for now 19 days, and I'm so excited to have you here, but I want more from you. I want you to join the Rosary and Real Estate community, not because I simply want to see the member count grow, but because if you've come this far, I think that you definitely feel that there's some relationship in this, that maybe you want to seek a little bit deeper in your faith, or maybe you want to learn how to be a real estate investor, or whatever the case might be. I encourage you and I invite you to please come join the Rosary and Real Estate community. If you do, you're going to get access to that group rosary, which is going to be very, very awesome. And if you've done this entire challenge, I really hope that you'll join us for the group rosary, because that's what it all leads up to. The second announcement is October 14th. We are going to be having our 5th ever Rosary and Real Estate community event. And that is an event where we talk about real estate investing strategies, and we talk about how to grow in salvation, how to build up our holiness and our virtues, and our love for Christ and his Blessed Mother Mary and all the angels and saints that surround us. So you can join that on October 14th. That is going to be also in the Rosary and Real Estate community, but the link to sign up for that directly for that event is going to be in the show notes. And I do have a direct sign up link for that event, just because I do want to get an accurate head count before the event starts. So please use that link to sign up. That is going to be October 14th at 6:30 p.m. Eastern time over Zoom. So all that to say, we are going to get into day 19. And today's title is The Mystic of the Rosary. And I'm going to do a little screen share here. Again, if you are listening on the Frankie D'Astoli show, I'm going to be breaking down all the notes, so you do not need to look at the screen. But if you are watching on YouTube or in the Rosary and Real Estate school page, you're going to be able to see my screen share. So let's pull this up here. All right, as you guys can see, or if you can't see, if you could listen, today the mystic of the Rosary saint is Saint Padre Pio. He is an absolute fan favorite, but there's going to be a lot of things that we're going to talk about today, guys, that I really don't think you actually know about Saint Padre Pio, because when I've read on some of this stuff, I was even surprised to hear some of this. But here's a few of the quotes here. The first quote is, "Our Lady has never refused me a grace through the recitation of the Rosary," from Saint Padre Pio, right? And I added two quotes because I think they're so good. But that one, just first off, think about that. Saint Padre Pio, a known saint before he even died. People were saying to go to Saint Padre Pio, including Saint Pope John Paul II, were saying to go to Saint Padre Pio before that man, before he was even off this earth. They knew that he was a saint through and through. And he is telling you that if you pray your rosary devoutly, there is not a grace that our Blessed Mother will refuse you, right? She's never refused him. And if you pray that rosary devoutly, she will never refuse you. His second quote, just a short and sweet one, "Go get my weapon." And he was referring to the rosary, right? St. Padre Pio, once again, understood that the rosary was a spiritual weapon, and one that is used to, battle against the forces of evil. And he's done that his entire life, especially over the battle of communism. But he lived from 1887 to 1968. His feast day is September 23rd. And he was a Capuchin Franciscan, which means he was order of the friars from St. Francis of Assisi. But he was a Capuchin monk as well, which was a separate kind of sect in there. And he was also known as you could guess in the title, a mystic, right? And a mystic is a visionary. They're, known for performing miracles. They have these kind of very intense battles in some cases with, the forces of evil. And there were talks that Saint Padre Pio, he's done a few things, right? He's had visions of Jesus and Mary, which we talked about. We're going to talk about a bunch of other miracle type stuff that he's done. But he also was known for having physical altercations with the devil, with Satan, with his demons. And he would literally be beaten up by the demonic. It was really insane. Again, Saint Padre Pio is one that in these 15 minutes of this video, you're not going to be able to get enough information out of. You should go look in a little bit more. But let's talk about a young Pio, right? So at a young age, Saint Padre Pio experienced visions of Jesus, Mary, the saints, and the angels around him. And he was ultimately surprised to realize that others didn't have these same visions. So we see here from a very young age, he's different from everybody else, right? He's already has, this kind of experience of the spiritual world around him. And we've talked about this a couple of days ago. Actually, I don't know if I mentioned this, but I'm reading a book. I know I mentioned this part. I'm reading a book called The Afterlife. It's from Servant of God, Don Dolindo Rotolo, who ironically, as I'm talking about this, was the spiritual director of St. Padre Pio, which is crazy. But in that book, Don Dolindo Rotolo, he talks a lot about what faith is. And he says faith is kind of like having an infrared vision of the things around you, right? So imagine like a soldier going into a battle and it's pitch black at night and he has infrared vision goggles. So he's able to see, all the enemies in front of him. He's able to see his allies. He's able to see whatever's on the field, even though it's pitch black. Faith is having that, right? Faith is understanding that even though you can't see Christ, he's with you. Even though you can't see our Blessed Mother, she's with you. Even though you can't see what's really going on earth and why you're going through these sufferings, you're able to take a look at it through the eyes of heaven, right? That's having faith. So at this moment for Padre Pio, he's not understanding, that other people aren't seeing what he's seeing. He's kind of got these infrared vision goggles on, and he thinks that everybody else does too, but they don't. He's the only one that has it, which is pretty crazy. And we're going to talk a little bit more about why I think that happened to him, if I'm being truthful. So St. Pio was a devout Marian, right, which means he was very devoted to our Blessed Mother. He would express that she was standing by him at all times throughout the day and openly told everyone that she protected him and watched over him. He consistently referred to it as my mother is right next to me, right? You could just say, she's here. She's right next to me. Again, that infrared vision. He told his brother priests they would only become holy if they welcomed Mary into their hearts. Think about how robust of a statement that is. You're a priest, right? You just went through seminary. You're like, cool, I've grown so much in holiness and virtues. And Saint Padre Pio looks at you and says, if you don't welcome Mary into your heart, you're not going to become holy. It's pretty profound. There was a period of time, this is pretty crazy. There was a period of time where Saint Pio was banned from the celebration of the Mass and hearing confessions. Truthfully, St. Padre Pio is one of the most misunderstood priests and saints of all time, right? When he was going through all of this, he would literally, like I said, he would have these battles with the demonic. He would fast, for days on end. He would listen to confessions for 16, 18, 20 hours. He wouldn't take breaks. He was truly an unbelievable saint. I'm trying to put it into words. But I think, from all of these things, it was very misunderstood, and there were kind of these, I don't know if I would call them negative connotations to Saint Padre Pio, but people looked at him and said he's a little bit too crazy, he's radical, he's kind of a cause of division, and for that he was banned from celebrating the Mass and hearing confessions for 2 years. And Pope Pius XII, who was Pope at the time, had this decision reversed and was able to kind of reinstate him to do these things. But again, that's another rabbit hole that you could go down of why did all of that happen? And in those 2 years, what was St. Padre Pio doing? How was he responding? He was obviously being humble and, accepting of everything that was going on. But, you have this unbelievable saint in those 2 years, what's going on? And, think about how unfortunate it is that the world lost 2 years of St. Padre Pio from celebrating the Mass and listening to confession. The next section, we're going to talk about the wounds of Christ. So St. Padre Pio, he was known for many things that we've already talked about, but one very important was that he had the stigmata. The stigmata is the actual wounds of Jesus Christ. I think we talked about this at some point in this 21-day challenge, but he literally bore the wounds of Christ in his hands, in his feet, in his side. He had bleeding wounds that bled consistently, and he would always have these gloves on, and you could see that, sometimes in certain pictures that you pull up of him, he doesn't have the glove on, and you see the wound, and it's absolutely bloody and bleeding at all times, the stigmata wounds. This is what kind of leads me to believe of why the reason was that he maybe saw these visions of Jesus, Mary, and the saints and angels at such a young age was the family rosary, right? So St. Pio's family were devout Catholics, and they would pray the rosary every single evening as a family and would even fast in honor of Our Lady of Mount Carmel. Listen, there's a lot of motion going on in today's world that, like, you should let your children pick their faith. And from what I've seen and from what I've experienced, that leads to absolute downfall of an opportunity to have a faithful family. And you know it's so important as parents that we raise our children in the faith, that we get them baptized as infants, that we, give them good godparents, that we constantly teach them the ways to walk in the path of Jesus Christ and to be close to our Blessed Mother. And we've seen with a few of the saints that we've talked about, with, Saint Pope Pius, he was a Dominican at the age of 14. We've seen that a lot of these saints, they come from devout families. And when they have this devout family unit and this family that prays the rosary together, this family that raises them up in the relationships with the church, they have such a higher degree of becoming holy, of developing virtues, and ultimately becoming saints. And I have no doubt in my mind that Saint Padre Pio, coming from this devout family and his family praying the rosary, and, for all we know, they might have even consecrated him to our Blessed Mother at a young age. All of these things, they matter, guys. They actually attribute to growth in holiness for ourselves, for our children, for future generations. And it's on us to continue to do that. And we could look at St. Padre Pio's family as a prime example and what it could do for your children, i.e., turn them into St. Padre Pio, right? Which would be an unbelievable thing. How many rosaries does St. Pio pray per day? So this is kind of going around. Some people might have heard that St. Padre Pio has prayed 100 rosaries a day. And again, you might think that's impossible. And we're going to talk about why that could actually be possible. But on one occasion, this was noted. And again, just a little plug. Everything that I pull on St. Padre Pio, guys, comes from things that I look up, of course, things that I've heard, but 90% of this is from Father Calloway's book, The Champions of the Rosary. So a little plug for Father Calloway. Go get that book for sure. But on one occasion, St. Padre Pio was asked how many rosaries he prayed today, and his response was 34. 34 rosaries, okay? He also confirmed that the rosary is the most pleasing prayer to Our Lady. So if you are going to pray to our Blessed Mother, the thing that's going to please her most is by reciting her rosary, which is beautiful to understand. But again, let's talk about that 34 for a second, right? So we were saying that, to pray a rosary is about 20 minutes. So let's just do some math here, not mental because I'm doing it on my calculator. 20 times 34 is 680 minutes. And we talked about that there's 1,440 minutes a day. So 680 divided by 1440 is 47%. So 47% of Padre Pio's day was praying the rosary. And you might wonder, like, how's that possible? Well, he was probably in a perpetual state of rosary praying. It's known that he's walked around with a rosary in his hand all day long, so he was definitely praying it all throughout his day. And also, let's keep in mind, at this point when this question was asked, we don't know what time of day that was, right? Was this 12 in the afternoon? Was this, 9 p.m.? Was this 11:59 p.m., right? Like, at what point was this even asked? And if it was asked at like 3 in the afternoon, then it's possible that Padre Pio had prayed, 60 rosaries that day. We don't really know. But what we know is he was so deep in faith and prayer that it was probably just a constant rosary going through his head, which is just awesome and beautiful. But here's another fact that we know about Padre Pio. He is known for the ability to bilocate, which means you could be in multiple places at once. And there's multiple accounts of this for St. Padre Pio, but one that stood out for me from Father Calloway's book was that he went and bilocated to the prison cell of Cardinal Mindszenty. I think I'm probably not saying that right. Mindszenty. I'm going to go with that one. Who was also a great champion of the Rosary and was imprisoned because of his opposition to communism. And this is a documented bilocation by St. Padre Pio, but there's many others. But I'm thinking about it from the concept of, all right, well, if Padre Pio is in multiple places at once, and in those places he's praying multiple rosaries, maybe he's doubling down on his rosaries throughout the day, which is pretty awesome. The last thing we'll say on Padre Pio, I titled this part, To Death Do Us Part. A day before his death, St. Padre Pio emphasized the following: love Mary, make her known, always pray the rosary. Let's break those three down real fast. Love Mary. How do we love our Blessed Mother, right? Well, we offer our days to her. We ask her to bring us closer to her Son, Jesus Christ. We offer her our own heart and we say, make it good. Make it into a heart that follows you, Blessed Mother. Make it into a heart that, is united with your son, Jesus Christ. That's a way we love Mary, right? We honor Mary in so many ways, just throughout our day. We honor her by praying our Hail Marys, by giving her, so much of our life to take into her own hands, into her gentle hands. The second one is maybe a little more challenging and maybe a little more of an encouragement to everybody. Make her known. So what Padre Pio is saying here is, yes, absolutely love Mary, but make her known. How do we make her known, guys? Well, if you are joining this Rare 21 Day Challenge, that's a great way to start. Learning her rosary, learning who Mary is, and then go and exactly like what she said to, St. Dominic, preach my Psalter, right? Go and talk about Mary. Talk about the rosary. Bring her into the life of your loved ones. We talk about the second joyful mystery as, love of neighbor, because our Blessed Mother Mary brought Christ to her cousin Elizabeth, and, John the Baptist in St. Elizabeth's womb jumped with joy. Well, how do we bring Mary to the people that we love too? We're bringing Christ to them. That's always obviously huge. How do we bring Mary as well? And then the third one, always pray the rosary. If you take anything from this challenge, pray a rosary every day, right? And then the last thing, when he died, he had Mary on his lips and a rosary in his hand. I pray that is the way that I go as well. So, St. Padre Pio, pray for us. I'm going to do a stop on the screen share here. Cool. And we're just about at time. So, St. Padre Pio, there's so much to unpack there. Please do some deep diving on your back end and learn a little bit more about this unbelievable saint who is truly in my opinion, one of the greatest saints to ever walk the earth, and one that I look to for guidance and intercession on a consistent basis. So we're going to end it there, guys. We have 2 days left. 2 days left. 2 more saints to go through before we get to the Feast of the Holy Rosary and we pray our group rosary together. So all that to say, pray your rosary, buy real estate. Don't do what makes you happy. Do what makes you holy. And I will see you guys tomorrow. Take care.